Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Freak Show. I am your host, Cinder Soleil. Alright, we are dipping our toes back into the cesspit that is politics, if only briefly. I am trying to cut back slightly on that content, just because a lot of what's going on right now, a lot of what's in the news, is things I am not well educated in, and I don't feel comfortable speaking about it. I will state my opinion all day. I have been here and there across X, but yeah. Especially, there might be misconceptions. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit about it. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Whether you agree or disagree, you are welcome to state your opinion in my comments below. I will respect your opinion. In turn, maybe you can respect mine by at least leaving a like. We are a tiny, tiny channel. We could use all the help we can get. It really helps. Anything helps. Anything at all. So, much appreciated. Alright. Thank you, and let's get into this, okay? I'm going to try to be as objective as possible on some of these subjects. Some of them I might pop off a little, just a word of warning, just because I'm passionate about our first subject here specifically. So this has been going viral across X, and this is an issue that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Libertarian, leftist, it doesn't matter if you're vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, it doesn't matter what the fuck. Everybody is popping off about this. There are some who are thinking, oh, it's just those vegans being annoying again. No, this is bigger. This is bigger. This is where your meat is coming from, carnivores, so don't just assume this is more vegan slop, okay? Recently, the House Agriculture Committee put out a bill, an absolute behemoth of a bill, over 800 pages long, and hidden in there was some bullshit. Again, it's a giant bill. We haven't been able to pick out every little thing that's wrong with it, but one major thing has to do with the pork industry, which is already really fucked up as it is. Louis Bullard reports, hidden on page 744 of the Farm Bill, is a provision that would condemn millions of pigs to a lifetime in gestation crates. Rebranded the Save Our Bacon Act, it's a pork industry play to wipe out every state law banning the sale of pork from crated pigs, laws the conservative Supreme Court upheld in 2023. It's called the Save Our Bacon Act. And isn't this just like the most classic of politician psyops, right? The Save Our Environment Act, the Save Our American Act, the Save Whatever Act. Some of them, like the Save Act, pretty much a supermajority from all parties agree on the SAVE Act, right? Voter ID. It's something. The Save Our Bacon Act, it makes it sound like, oh, we're saving the piggies, we're saving our bacon. We're saving our bacon by saving the piggies. Nope. You are condemning pigs to hell. This is literally hell. Gestation crates are genuinely terrible. Imagine, as a piglet, you are born in absolute filth, with no sunshine, no grass to see, just filth. Which pigs, common misconception, are extremely clean creatures. Extremely clean. Our family pig, even when she was like a tiny, tiny piglet, she's still a little baby. Maybe I can find a picture. I'll put it somewhere on the screen here. Show you a picture of a little baby piglet. Even when she was a piglet, she was pretty much potty trained. She did it herself. She would already pick a corner to do her business in, and then complete opposite side of the corner, as far away from it as possible, she would do her sleeping and her eating and all that. The potty trainer just pretty much relocated that corner and told her where to go. And as for rolling in the mud, it's not feces, it's rolling in mud. They do that for sunscreen, because they have sensitive skin, they get burnt easy. Pigs are fascinating creatures. They're one of the most intelligent species, aside from humans, on the planet. There's this common misconception that they're just so filthy and dumb and commonly associated with, things like billionaires and stuff. We call people pigs as an insult. Pigs are great creatures. So in these gestation crates, piglets are born into absolute filth, usually among many dying brothers and sisters because of overbreeding, terrible conditions, and then at way too young an age, these piglets are taken. Brothers are usually sold off or slaughtered. If they're slaughtered, it's often right in front of the mother, while the mother is screaming in grief because they do feel Like, these are emotionally sensitive creatures. They feel grief. That little piglet gets crammed in her own crate. She can barely turn her head. She can't lay down. She's artificially inseminated over and over and over again and used basically just as a breeding stock repeatedly until she's never able to turn around to see her piglets or anything. Again, piglets are taken from her when they're too young, slaughtered in front of her, same fate as her mother. Until the day she can no longer have healthy babies. Never seen the sunlight, never seen some grass. And the first time she finally outside of her crate is just to be loaded into a trailer, then led to a slaughterhouse. Muscles completely atrophied, falling apart, and nobody cares how much she has suffered or how much she will suffer depending on the slaughter method. And it is absolutely horrific. There are so many stories about the absolute trauma, the PTSD-like symptoms that these factory workers and slaughterhouse workers will have. Because it's one thing to be a farmer. We've been farming since humanity has existed, basically. We've always domesticated animals. We've always raised livestock. We've always been hunters. We are omnivorous by our nature. It's natural for us to be hunters. But it is not natural for us to get up, go to work, and every single day be exposed to the industrialized mass torture and mutilation and slaughter of animals on that kind of scale. It's not natural. And the conditions that the animals are put through and the workers are put through, it's also not natural. It's really rubs on your psyche. On top of that, the meat that these places produce, it's not like the grass-fed, healthy, really good meat that is coming from these places. These pigs have to be injected with iron and vitamin D because they can't get the nutrients from grass or soil or sun. They have to be injected with those things, and usually it's a cheaper synthetic Pfizer approved version of those things, not real vitamin D or naturally derived vitamin D or something. They're fed absolute slop, they're treated like garbage, they're pumped full of shit, including vaccines, mRNA sometimes, allegedly. That's kind of a controversy, it's an ongoing thing. All sorts of shit. And these pigs are treated terribly. And unhealthy pigs create unhealthy meat. This is the kind of meat that you find at McDonald's and Taco Bell. This is the kind of meat that shows up in frozen Jimmy Dean sausage bowls that you don't want to know where you got it. You just got it for cheap and you need something to eat. This is garbage meat. These pigs spend a lifetime in hell only to give us low-quality Jimmy Dean sausage rolls that we're probably going to eat half of and then throw away anyway. My God. And, as Mr. Bullard makes the point here, over 85% of Democrats and Republicans oppose these crates. Voters have backed ballot measures to ban them in state after state, Republican and Democrat. Yes, this is a thing. The only two politicians that are proposing this, the two politicians backing this bill, take money from the meat industry. The pork industry knows it can't win a straight vote on this, so it's burying the provision in an 800-page bill and hoping no one notices. And this is classic politics, classic political trick in the book. Yeah. Here's the bill, by the way. H.R. 7567, to provide for the reform and continuation of agricultural and other programs of the Department of Agriculture through fiscal year 2031 and for other purposes. So it was 744, he said. Here we go. Informing amendment. Section 18 of the Animal Welfare Act is repealed. Section 18 of the Animal Welfare Act is repealed. I just pulled up the Animal Welfare Act. I'm curious what Section 18 is. Okay, so I guess that's what this is. The Animal Welfare Act establishes specific requirements for the importation of dogs intended for resale in the United States, except for dogs intended for research or veterinary treatment. There's probably some bullshit behind that measure. Maybe one of you can tell me. Let's get back to what I was looking for, though. Section 12006, ensuring the free movement of livestock-derived products in interstate commerce. This is it. The purpose of this section is to 1. Protect the free movement in interstate commerce of products derived from covered livestock. 2. Encourage a national market of such products. 3. ensure that producers of covered livestock are not subject to a patchwork of state laws restricting access to national market, and 4, uphold its international trade obligations. This number 3 is where the bullshit is. Encourage a national market of such products. If anything, we need to encourage a national restriction on the pigs raised in this condition. Everybody knows that people are against gestation crates. They're inhumane to the pig. And even if you don't care about being humane toward pigs, it's still, the pig is going to have to be supplemented. They're going to be eating slop most of the time. They're being treated like garbage. They create terrible quality meat. It's bad for the people. It's bad for the workers. It's bad for humans. Gestation crates are not good for pigs or humans at the end of the day. And this is the sneakiest fucking way to get around the state laws that are banning them. And again, it's not just California. It's not just Oregon. It's not just the quote-unquote hippie states that have enforced bans or really heavy restrictions on things like gestation crates. But even like small, tiny, bare minimum laws like that could be overruled if because this is national. This could overrule any of those, much less the flat-out bans on gestation crates. And genuinely, this subject does make people go a little nuts in the head. By the way, contact your senators and representative today to tell them oppose this farm bill unless the Save Our Bacon Act is stripped out. You can reach them at senate.gov or house.gov. It takes 2 minutes and it matters, yes. Shoot your senators, shoot your representatives an email, give them a call, send them a letter. It may not sound like it does a lot, right? We're kind of backwards in a way. I mean, people get fired up over, like, voting for shit and more shit with politicians. But then when it comes to, like, individual matters like this, where, yes, each individual message could make a difference if we all pitched in, and nobody's anywhere to be seen. I think half of that is intentional, but at the same time, like, guys, in the same way that mobilizing enough voters can change in the course of an entire national election, motivating enough people with any local representatives, that can change the course of a bill like this. We already have politicians speaking out. We already have people speaking out all across X. But this is a topic that a lot of people don't want to think about. This is a topic that a lot of people will roll their eyes at for various different reasons. This is a topic that, unfortunately, people like insane vegan activists will make people grow resentful toward. Remember, I just talked about this in my vegetarian possible conversion video. I was talking about, like, vegan activists have the opposite effect that they want on people, and that's another reason that I hate vegan activists. Even if I cared about, like, the mission, even if I cared about nobody should be eating meat, I want to enforce my way of living on everybody else. If I gave a shat about that, the methods that these vegans are doing they have the opposite intended effect. Let's just say that. I know this because I've been tempted to rip into a steak just to spite some of these absolute retards that I see online that are vegan activists, and just the performative absolute bullshit that they do. That doesn't mean we can't think about these serious issues. We can't find common ground with people who do care about being humane toward animals, who do care about animal welfare. Some people have gotten a little cuckoo. I saw this insane post as a solution, quote unquote. Seems like people are always coming up with new solutions for farming, and it's very few of them that I've seen that are actually like, how about we restrict Bill Gates and Chinese companies from buying up our farmland so we have more land to farm with? I've seen some of that. But even more of that, the solution seems to be, why don't we grow our own meat? Not from piglets, not from calves, in a lab. From God knows what. Let's take some cells of God knows what, some weird bacteria, and turn it into fake meat. I mean, I don't know the full science behind bioengineered meat, but from what I have heard about it, it's not pleasant. And now people are taking it a step further. Look at this shit. The ultimate solution is through technology. We engineer what has been called a bodyoid, brainless animal bodies that provide as much meat as we desire without harming any sentient beings. This would transform medicine. The same platform would allow us to grow organs on demand, eliminate transplant waiting lists, and produce perfectly matched tissues for each patient. Maybe that I could question. For meat, this is fucking weird, man. Experimental therapies could be tested on full biological symptoms without involving conscious animals. Regenerative medicine would accelerate as entire replacement tissues become manufacturable. Okay, from a medical standpoint and like experimental standpoint, maybe you have a point. The last part of this is a bit no. In the same way that agriculture turned food from a scarce resource into an abundant one, engineered bodyoids would turn biological material into infrastructure. Meat without slaughter, organs without donors, and medical research without sentient suffering. This sounds like the opening bit of lore to some sort of body horror movie. This sounds like the lost tape you find on a side quest in an indie horror game to explain why the weird semi-sentient pig creature monster is now chasing you. This sounds so fucking... Oh my god. Maybe, just maybe, I could see a case for, like, experimental therapies for medicine, for maybe organs. Things like that I could get for meat. Look at this. This looks like some sort of Matrix-ass fucking human battery. Hell, oh my god. Oh, the domestic meat pig, the meat variety. The only facial orifices are nostrils for breathing, lack of cerebral cortex, feed tube, waist tube, complete lack of nociceptors, enhanced with snake genes for longer torso, more ribs. This sounds like a horror game creature. Am I insane? Forearms basically non-existent. Forelimbs only consist of pork shoulder and pig's feet. And then you have the breeding variety that will produce milk for juveniles. And hyperlactation. Oh my god. This looks like either some apocalyptic cyberpunk fucking hellhole. I don't want to say what this reminds me of. You have this Morning Glory milking farm shit over here. What the fuck? What is this? Maybe the solution isn't through technology. Maybe the solution is to just return to nature. Please. Like, genuinely. And the only people who make an argument in favor of, like, the gestational crates are like, well, it's making meat more available. It's making meat. Guys, I don't know about you, but if it means we aren't ingesting absolute garbage that is just a net negative for humans, if it means we aren't subjecting factory and slaughterhouse workers to insane environments that will destroy their mental, spiritual, and often, yes, physical health, if it means one of the most intelligent species on the planet don't have to suffer through actual inconceivable hell, mostly for the sake of garbage food that is going to be either thrown out or will wind up giving some dude a heart attack because he's eaten so much of them he's now obese and has a heart the size of a fucking basketball, I think it's worth a slight price increase. Like, people say meat shouldn't be a luxury item. Maybe it shouldn't be a luxury item. That's a bit much. Would you rather pay like $2 for a whole pork shoulder with this being your reality? Or would you rather see a slight price increase, knowing it's a real animal that has lived a good life, that has gotten its nutrients from the soil, from natural sources, and now those resources, those nutrients are going to you. You are benefiting health-wise and conscious-wise. And so are the factory workers and everybody involved. Everybody benefited from this mild price increase. Not a tax. There's some people who propose like meat taxes. I'm not a fan of that. Fuck taxes. Taxation is theft. But I would be up for a slight price increase on my pork if it means this is not my reality. Just saying. Let me know your thoughts about that, though. I have a few subjects I want to hit on today. It's not just this. Okay, next subject. I want to be as objective as possible. I'm going to give you the rundown. I'm going to give you some general objective thoughts. I'll inject my opinion here and there, how it's developed, how it's changed slightly, even just from when I started the channel a couple months ago. I'm a tard from the California education system. There's a lot I'm still teaching myself that I'm having to learn from outside the education system to give me context to some of these things. So, yes, my opinion can change. Maybe you can change it, maybe not. I'm just saying. Whatever. We're gonna get into it. Ted Cruz warns that danger has never been higher of a terrorist attack by Iran. When the Iranian protesters, when the news first broke about Iranian protesters dying in the streets, being shot in the streets, my heart broke for them. I felt super bad, and intervention just made sense, especially after Maduro. Whether you think what happened in Venezuela was justified or not, it was a seamless, minimal, civilian casualty incident of removing a dictator, and millions of Venezuelans from across the globe were celebrating that. And yes, there were ones who weren't. I genuinely saw more white liberal Americans who were praising Maduro than I saw actual Venezuelans praising Maduro after his capture. Just saying. And again, you can have your own opinions on that. This is just what I've seen. At first, it made sense. Oh my god, this is a massive human rights violation. This is insane. We should do something. Intervention made sense. The more I look into the history of Iran, and the more I see just the absolute domino effect that this is having already, I'm kind of growing uncertain about that. As a matter of fact, I'm leaning the opposite direction. And this is before the strikes were made, to be clear, even then. Returning to my libertarian roots, if you will. And I'm like, okay, this is actually... Holy shit. Oh, you mean regime change has been attempted in Iran before? Oh, they tried to nationalize their oil, and the US deposed him in favor of a Shah, who they overthrew because they didn't like his autocratic rule, and that's how the Iranian regime got into... So US intervention, it didn't end well the first time around either. Oh dear. The more I learn about this kind of stuff, the more I'm like, oh fuck. But I still want to be objective, okay? It does not matter how anti-war you are. That doesn't make Khamenei, it doesn't make the Iranian regime a good force in the world. We recognize this with party politics all the time, right? Just because a Democrat sucks, it doesn't mean a Republican is optimal or vice versa. It just means we live in a two-party state. For some reason, we can't get a third party that can stand its ground. Maybe that's intentional, maybe not. Either way, just because you don't like America interventionism doesn't mean what's happening in Iran, the Iranian leaders, it doesn't make them the good guys by any stretch of the imagination. These guys have collapsed their country. They are the #1 funders of terrorism across the Middle East. Several terrorist groups. They mass murder in the streets. Peaceful protesters. Actual peaceful protesters. In America, you can cherry pick cases where some person who was part of a riot got shot by police. And the reality in America, in a lot of cases, is rioters who have committed assault, arson, will get let off the hook. Not even a single blink. Usually because of some biased judges, or these sort of social justice warrior slush funds that groups like Antifa will have. That's how it goes in America. Even our violent protesters will get off the hook. In Iran, if you speak against the government, apparently the response is you get shot in the street, you get hunted down in hospitals, your family is threatened, and foreign terror groups that your government funds will come in and keep you, quote-unquote, under control. And by the way, what is seen as a symbol of protest in Iran, a woman uncovering her hair, burning a picture of the leader, chanting in the street, whatever you think about like flag burning in the US or whatever, some what some people genuinely try to consider acts of protest is like looting, arson, vandalism to extreme degrees, billions in damage across a city, but it's a peaceful protest. Like, it's not comparable. I've seen too many people on the left who are, you don't like the Iranian government going after peaceful protests. What do you have to say about this incident in America? It's not comparable. It is never comparable. I have yet to see like one case where it is comparable. And the one case where the federal force was in the wrong, which was Alex Preddy. You can look at my video on Alex Preddy. I probably could say a few things differently, but I will stand by what I said. Alex, not innocent. Number one rule of being a responsible firearm carrier, universal law in every state, always disclose you are carrying before any sort of interaction with law enforcement. And definitely don't resist arrest while you're carrying. That ends poorly. But, objectively speaking, he was disarmed before he was shot. You can see that on the camera. ICE was in the wrong. ICE should be held accountable for that. When I say I'm pro-ICE, it does not mean I'm anti-accountability. I don't like the feds. Objectively true, when they fuck up, they should be held accountable. And I don't like it when, like, where these federal roadblocks, basically, where if you do try to probe into a case. Now, granted, a lot of the local probes like that are ridiculous in how they handle it, as in, like, shut down the entirety of ICE, we need to investigate this incident. Since when do you shut down the entirety of any law enforcement division because a cop fucked up? No, you suspend the cop, fire him even, do something with the cop, get him off the streets, let the others do their job. They didn't fuck up, that guy did. And maybe your probe reveals that maybe it is a systemic error, maybe they were trained this way, maybe it is something from his chief or something. Either way, in which case, yeah, that can be escalated. I branched way off topic there, holy shit. Let me get back on track here. Yeah, I have yet to see a single case in America that is comparable to the Iranian regime. Our government is fucked up for sure, especially in holding powerful people accountable. It's still not comparable to Iran. Yeah, that's what I want to be the most objective about, okay? An oppressive, violent dictator dying is objectively good. Just as bombing a girls' school and hundreds of children dying, hundreds of civilians across the entire map dying, is also objectively bad. And yes, a lot of stories that were initially described as like, remember the girls' school bombing was described as one of Iran's missiles misfiring. People geolocated the missile strikes. The failed Iranian missile strike landed like 800 miles away from the school near the mountains. It was most likely, by our own politicians' admission, a US bomb. Based on our investigation, it was most likely a US bomb that hit the girls' school. That is objectively really fucking bad. Price increases across America because of this war. Objectively bad. War hawks getting power, lobbying with foreign governments to encourage our president to take more action. Maybe some of you like that. I think it's objectively bad. Objectively speaking, there is a possibility. We take out enough ayatollahs, we take out enough El Presidentes, that Iran democratizes. Iran elects a democratic authority. Or a democratic authority comes to lead Iran. That is a possibility. That is a very good possibility. If that happens, that's great. That is objectively good. However, at the same time, the more I look into this, it feels like a slimmer and slimmer possibility. Objectively speaking, based on our track record and the track record of the world in the last century, of over 100 attempted regime changes where you can count on your fingers, count on one hand most likely the amount that have actually worked. I think off the top of my head, what regime changes have actually worked, or like what wars have actually been effective in deposing an evil leader and getting a democratizing force in. The Axis countries, Panama, Guatemala, kind of. Their government is extremely corrupt over there right now, so barely. You can say Venezuela, maybe, but we're gonna have to wait a few years to see, like, the full effects of what we did there. Last I heard in fucking Venezuela, things were just, like, kind of up in the air as far as leadership went. Does this lady who was actually elected get in? Does an American force get in? Which is kind of like playing into that American imperialism, however you feel about that. I'm not going to dive down that rabbit hole. But anyway, my point being, I can list 4 countries where regime change objectively actually worked. Kind of. Because bear in mind, there were other factors. If we can depose a violent, terrible dictator, and the country democratizes and people are objectively freer than they were before, and that freedom lasts, that's a good thing. You can be pissy. As an anti-war person, you can say, this should have never happened, it was never our fight to begin with. I understand that position a lot, but that's objectively a good thing. However, odds say that is the lowest of possibilities. That is the least likely to happen. Odds say that the most likely to happen is we continue to depose leader after leader. The people stay oppressed because just because you took out Trump, for example, you still have JD to go through, you still have Pete Hegseth, you still have Marco Rubio, you still have entire Congress, you still have an entire Senate, you still have all the state governments. Like, just because you take out the supreme leader does not mean that there are countless other little local leaders that are ready to not just fill the position, but continue to govern in their place. And they're going to be mad. They're going to be big mad. Oppression is still going to be happening. Arguably, it's going to be worse, especially for the people who were protesting against the leader. A lot of them are being bombed. They're having their lives destroyed. So a lot of them might not just change their mind, but become radicalized. And we already know that the Iranian government is the #1 funder of terror and was enlisting the help of one of those terror groups to help quell protesting citizens. So just like the Taliban, just like Hezbollah, just like the fucking Houthis, just like Hamas, if they don't actually get into power, they're just going to raise hell and start a civil war that's going to be bloody and cause another crisis. Speaking of crises, the humanitarian crises that are going to undoubtedly arise in Iran and all the countries that Iran is striking, and all the countries, and Lebanon, since Israel is striking over there now because the US just gave them the courage to do that, apparently. We're paying for all of that! Whenever there's a humanitarian crisis, the US is always the #1 person handling those crises. Which, yeah, good to help people, but at the same time, not only do we have our own problems over here, not only are our young people insanely depressed and dying at alarming rates, not only do we have homeless veterans, not only do we have drug crises, mental health crises that are leading to fucking church shooters every other week, church and school shooters every other week. Like, not like we have our own problems. And the big thing, I'm not saying, like, they don't have their own problems over there. I'm saying, like, half the reason that they have those problems is because of our own intervention. Why are we choosing to create more humanitarian crises that we are going to be funding when we have our own problems? It's oh my god. Again, whether you agree or disagree, anti-war, pro-war, this is like, I'm just saying, like, objective things here. Yes, if you couldn't already tell, I'm pretty much anti-war. I can see the reality where you fight hard enough, you get a democratizing force into Iran, that would have a ripple effect. Iran is the #1 funder of so many terror groups in that region. A lot of terrorist groups would lose their funding, lose their support. The country itself would be objectively freer, better for the citizens. Cool. But A, it's a slim reality. Based on our track record, it's a reality that will likely end in failure. It's a reality that will likely end in with a worse force, or we'll get like a neutral force in there and then they'll be overtaken by a worse force in a few years. Another terrorist group is going to pop up. More people are going to be radicalized. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. This happens all the time when we try to do regime changes. in these countries. It doesn't matter if it's Obama and Democrat warhawks with Libya. It doesn't matter if it's Bush and Republican warhawks with fucking Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever. This happens all the time. Anyway, let's read this article. In the Capitol building, Texas Senator Ted Cruz gave an interview in which he warned that the danger has never been higher than right now of a terrorist attack on U.S. soil orchestrated by Iran, which he attributed to the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. Sure. What do you guys think of Ted Cruz? He seems like such a snake oil salesman to me. He flip-flops so often on so many issues. I do not like Ted Cruz whatsoever. News Nation correspondent Jackie Copel appeared to have stopped Cruz while traversing the halls of the Capitol building and asked the Texas senator, "Are you concerned about sleeper cells? There's been discussion of that." Cruz quickly replied, "Yes. Look, the risk of terrorism right now is quite high."
Are you concerned about sleeper cells? There's been discussion of that.
Look, the risk of terrorism right now is quite high. We tragically saw in Austin, Texas, just last weekend, we saw a terrorist attack. We also saw another terrorist attack in New York City. There is a heightened danger of terrorism right now, and I will say it is particularly indefensible that Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security while we are facing an enhanced terrorist risk. The Department of Homeland Security...
We exposed a massive child trafficking, satanic, corrupt, elite government ring, and at the same time, DHS is being threatened to shut down. Then Trump decides to strike Iran. Sometimes things line up in such a way that they make you think. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm mainly joking, but I mean, right? He cited the incident in the capital of his home state, Austin, where a gunman opened fire at a bar and a busy street in downtown Austin, killing 3 and injuring 15 on March 1st. The incident is currently being investigated as an act of terrorism related to the renewed conflict with Iran. Cruz also brought up the incident where 2 Pennsylvania men attempted to trigger homemade explosive devices outside the home of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Cruz warned that there is a heightened danger of terrorism right now and added that it is particularly indefensible that Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security while we are facing an enhanced terrorist risk. The DHS is currently facing nearly a month of no funding as Democrats and Republicans in Congress butt heads over ICE, and Customs and Border Protection reform. The Republican senator's comments come days after reports emerged of federal authorities warning California law enforcement agencies that Iran may be considering a retaliatory drone attack against the U.S. West Coast, in retaliation for the strikes carried out on Iran by Israel and the United States. The West Coast? Pretty much the opposite side of the globe from Iran? That's where they want to strike? Can their drones even reach the West Coast? Could Iran even feasibly get close to the West Coast? Could they even get within striking distance of the West Coast? I'm not suggesting a false flag, but what the fuck, man? That reads like it'd be difficult. You're choosing to strike like the hardest part of our country to strike for your location. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what our government's doing, I don't know what they're doing, I don't know what anybody's doing. This is a shit show if I ever saw one. Reporting from ABC News, the FBI alert distributed to police departments at the end of February said we recently acquired information that, as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California. In the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran, President Donald Trump said he had been briefed on possible Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S., but that he was not worried about Iran-backed attacks on U.S. soil. However, since the U.S. and Israel carried out strikes on Iran, Tehran has since responded with retaliatory attacks in the region. So Tehran has been striking at our allied countries, mainly targeting just U.S. bases and not just carpet bombing like we have a tendency of doing. Not even us, Israel. What is it with Israel and carpet bombing countries? I'm not saying the US is entirely innocent when it comes to bombing civilians. Obama, Clinton, Bush. But man, Israel takes it to a new degree. Netanyahu loves his carpet bombs. Trump says U.S. is totally destroying Iran and to watch what happens Friday. Here is an update as of today. What to know? Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced Friday that today will be yet again the highest volume of strikes that America has put over the skies of Iran and Tehran. Operation Epic Fury, which the U.S. launched on February 28th, is now in its 14th day. Hegseth said Friday at the Pentagon that the American and Israeli militaries are picking targets as they choose. So we're just saying, hey, look at that one, bomb it. I have mixed feelings about this excuse of like, well, the girls' school was right next to a military base. You can only hear that excuse so many times without, like, raising your eyebrow, right? Like, I get it. There are documented cases where, like, Hamas will use human shields to avoid getting hit by the IDF. There are documented cases of terrorist groups putting supplies under hospitals and stuff because they know those you can't strike hospitals in war. Which, however you feel about it, it's objectively, just because it's objectively bad that the terrorists are using human shields, just because it's objectively bad that terrorists are putting supply bunkers, weapon stashes, all that under hospitals and stuff, it doesn't make it objectively good that an ally force or us would bomb a hospital with people in it, with babies in it. An objective wrong doesn't make an objective right. And as for, like, proximity, the girls' school was just across the street from, like, a military base. I have, in my lifetime, I've lived down the street from National Guard outposts. They're just there. Think about that. You live down the street because your government decided to put, like, a National Guard troop station behind your local Walmart. Even no matter how much you hate your own government, some foreign threat bombs your house, you lose everything. And then the excuse, no matter how much you hate your own government, the excuse from the foreign forces, well, why was your house so close to the military site? In my head, that logic does not really check out. I get it. I objectively get. It is objectively true that terrorist groups like this do use human shields. That is a common tactic that Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, they do that. They do put bunkers and tunnels and bullshit underneath hospitals and schools. Allies and us bombing children, bombing hospitals, killing civilians en masse. It's still objectively bad. It's like, I don't know what the solution is. I'm just a tart on the internet. But I can still call a spade a spade. Are terrorists bad? Yes. Are dictatorial regimes bad? Yes. Is radical theocracy bad? Yes. Does it make people do crazy shit? Yes. Is bombing hospitals bad? Yes. Is bombing schools bad? Yes. Is children dying bad? Yes. And you can argue, we can argue all day about the reasoning and the justification and blah 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 blah. At the end of the day, I still see just, there's dead civilians, there's dead terrorists, there's dead soldiers. Hegseth added that between our Air Force and that of the Israelis, over 15,000 enemy targets have been struck. Yeah, and several civilians. Trump says U.S. is not focused on taking Iran's enriched uranium, but at some point we might be. Wasn't enriched uranium the main reason we attacked Iran? At first it was the protesters. Then what do you know? Netanyahu says Iran is 2 weeks from a missile. They have enriched uranium. We must strike now. We're not worried about the enriched uranium, but at some point we might take it, just saying. Is that the main reason that you struck them in the first place? This is so scattered. Am I retarded? Everybody's saying countries don't use enriched uranium unless they're making weapons of mass destruction. By that logic, Trump's just letting them have the enriched uranium. But at some point they might take it. I'm so confused. Turkey's defense ministry announced Friday that it intercepted a ballistic missile fired from Iran. In the United Arab Emirates, smoke rising into the air near Dubai's Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, following an Iranian drone interception there. That sentence feels wrong. The point being, there's bullshit going on in our ally countries because of this, which I'm not saying Turkey and the UAE don't have their own issues, but why did they have to get striked? This is the main thing with war, right? It's like, it's not just us taking the brunt of it, it's not just Iran taking the brunt of it even. Allies will get dragged in, and a lot of those countries we already have hairline relationships with, the most fragile threads of peace. Any sort of action could spell, more radicalized forces taking over the region. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East Steve Witkoff, during an interview on Hannity Tuesday, offered a behind-the-scenes account of the opening exchanges in the recent U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations. Witkoff said Iranian negotiators declared they controlled roughly 460 kilograms of enriched uranium, to about 60%, and that this material could potentially be further enriched toward weapons-grade levels in about a week to 10 days. Is there some type of operation in place to grab it? Trump was asked by Brian Kilmeade. No, not at all. And we're not focused on that. But at some point we might be, Trump responded. Right now we're focused on knocking the hell out of their missiles and their drones. I'm pretty sure enriched uranium was like the main, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Trump, when, the thing with the protesters happened is Trump was like, we will send help for you guys. And then nothing happened. And then Netanyahu said, they have enriched uranium, and what do you know? Strikes the next day. I'm not grieving, I'm not shedding a single tear over the lives of fucking terrorists or anyone within the Iranian regime. At the same time, it feels like there's bullshittery afoot here, okay? It feels like there's bullshittery afoot here. And there's so much about this that feels like it didn't need to happen. Like Iran striking Dubai, Iran striking Turkey, Iran striking U.S. military bases and killing U.S. servicemen. Some people were saying, it was just 6 servicemen killed. We're decimating their forces. That's 6 servicemen that didn't need to die, you fucking twat. Ay. By the way, I wanted to talk about this. One of the most common anti-war voices right now that you hear a lot about is Thomas Massie, right? And the main argument against Massie is that Massie took $7,000 from an Iranian dude. He's clearly owned by Muslims, guys. He's clearly owned by the radical Muslim lobby who just wants to simp for ISIS and the Iranian regime. He's clearly owned by them. By the way, a lot of the evidence they're pointing to, I saw one post that was showing who the guy was. He was an Iranian, I don't think he was an ambassador or something, but it was an Iranian dude with vague ties to the Iranian regime, maybe. Not like he worked for him or anything, it might have been pro-Khamenei or whatever. A lot of their evidence is just showing Muhammad on his donor registrar. A dude named Muhammad donated. That's not the evidence you think it is. A dude named Muhammad donated to you? Now you're clearly owned by the Iranian regime. Wow. Which, to be fair, I'm willing to look, as I said here, Massie campaign took $7,000 from an Iranian dude, and his whole run, he's clearly owned by Muslims. I'm willing to look into these donors. I would like to know who's donating to our politicians and what potential foreign interests they represent. Yes, I would be a hypocrite if I said, I feel like there's shady shit about AIPAC. I don't like all these foreign lobbies influencing our government. And then I just said, well, it's okay for Massie because he's cool. If there's a dude with foreign interests donating to one of our politicians, whoever it is, whatever the foreign interest is, I'm willing to look into that. That's worth looking into. But at the same time, if you give any sort of Trump or his buddies clearance, and then you shit on Massie for this, you are an even bigger hypocrite than I would be, my friend. Trump appoints a literal Saudi lobbyist to his team and lists 3 former Qatari lobbyists, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Lee Zeldin, to his cabinet, not to mention accepting Bribe Force One, the $400 million jet. Which, by the way, Iran is evil because they're the primary funder of ISIS and other terror groups. Qatar is the #1 funder of fucking Hamas. What the fuck? I think they also have donated to the Houthis and Hezbollah. Best buddies with Lindsey Graham, who has accepted $30,000 from Qatari officials, not to mention being a freaking major war hawk. He literally sabotaged a fucking peace negotiation with Zelensky, met with Zelensky ahead of his meeting with Trump. Sounds like subverting Republican interests, something Massie is accused of doing all the time, even though he votes over 98% with Republicans and Lindsey Graham votes more than 50% with Democrats. Anyway, cuts Pakistan easy deals on tariffs and foreign policy after Pakistani officials pump millions into random American lobbies. Top fundraisers accept millions from UAE advisors. Secretary of State, one of the top recipients of Emirati lobby money. By the way, Dubai, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, 99% sure, definitely Pakistan. All of these countries are massive human rights violators. Oh my god, just like Iran. But because they share their oil with us, they get clearance. Because Trump needs a peace deal to look good, right? We're gonna be friendly toward Qatar now, even though they fund Hamas. By the way, that whole peace deal has pretty much completely fallen apart. I haven't heard anything about that. Half these countries still marry off. They're 9-year-olds. Even if they have laws on the books, they don't enforce it. Or you can marry your 9-year-olds, you just need the parents' permission, which half their parents are selling their daughters. That's the problem. Because it's tradition. It's in the religion. It's the same sort of bullshit logic that we still use for circumcising our boys. Well, it's what we've always done. What the fuck, man? It's like half the arguments that you use to attack Iran. Oh my god, they're evil, XYZ. And half these countries do that too. Sometimes they just do it more sneakier, more under the books, more under the radar. Dubai is one of the biggest hotspots for trafficking and slavery. And, by the same logic, one Iranian dude donates to Massie. He's clearly owned by Muslims. By that same logic, what about the over 200 million in Zionist and Israeli-backed lobbies that have funded the Trump campaign? Like AIPAC? Like the Republican Jewish Coalition? I'm not saying like that as a... There are some people who use like Jewish as a slur now for some reason. There's literally a group, the Republican Jewish Coalition. They're major Zionists and they always are very Israel first. However you feel about Israel, I'm just telling you, they're very, very, very pro-Israel. They run cover for them all the time. That's their stance. Okay? By that same logic that you are attacking Massie with, though, that would make Trump even more owned by another country/religious body. Let's just say that. Dude, at the end of the day, all politicians, even the good ones, are doing some level of shady shit. It's how you survive in this field. I would be interested in knowing who Massie is taking money from. And if it is, like, someone with, like, I doubt it's direct ties to the Iranian regime, but maybe he denounces him now. God only knows. Remember that whole heated news bit about, like, the KKK leader dude who donated to Trump? And clearly that made Trump owned by the KKK, or it made him endorse him, even though Trump spoke against it. They're using the exact same logic to attack Massie here. Which, again, I cannot stress enough. I would not be opposed to looking into what foreign interests are donating to our politicians. I'm not against that. I am all for that. What I am saying is don't be a fucking hypocrite about it. This is something you can apply across the board. And when we talk about like AIPAC and Zionist lobbies and stuff, I absolutely hate that the right's new thing is to say that's anti-Semitism, you can't talk about it. The right has been talking for years about how you can't just use that's racism, that's misogyny, that's homophobic, that's transphobic, or yes, that's anti-Semitic. Like, they play those cards to shut down, that's Islamophobic, that's a big one on the left, right? Like, you can't just use those cards every time you face criticism to shut down an argument. The right has been arguing that for years. And yes, I'm for that. I take up that argument too. You can't just base out the identity politics victims cards to win an argument, or to shut down an argument. There are people who do that, and it's incredibly obnoxious. Even liberals will point out how stupid that is. Why is the right the main people who speak out against that, but then they suspend that same logic to call you anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel? They suspend that same logic to speak about how Zionist money influences politicians. Just because it's in your party's interest, shut down the conversation and you need a convenient excuse? I don't get this. And similarly, people are saying, well, Trump never changed. It's you who've changed. It's Massie who's changed. Not even in the 2016 administration, not even on the campaign trail in 2020. This administration has literally said no more war in Iran. We've lost too many soldiers in the Middle East fighting stupid battles with no victory. Regime change doesn't work. We've dumped so much money into the Middle East, we could be using that to help Americans. Let's get out of the Middle East. No more foreign entanglements over there. That was Trump, probably like a year ago at best. And that was all his supporters, like Gunther Eagleman, saying, no war in Iran, yeah, Trump is so based. Most anti-war president. He's not gonna start any new wars, yeah, here we are. And Trump is defending this. His best friend is Lindsey Graham. Pretty sure one of his primary opponents in 2016, 2020, and 2024 was Lindsey Graham. Because he spoke of him, he called him out as a war hawk. You are a war hawk. Like, it's not even like an unrelated thing. Trump specifically called out Lindsey Graham because he was a war hawk and his foreign policy sucked. It just reflected the Bush administration, which is not what we want. And now he's best friends with Lindsey Graham. On foreign policy. On the basis of foreign policy. And he's calling out Massie. He was praising Massie as a constitutionalist, which, by the way, in the Constitution, no foreign entanglements. Did George stutter? Massie is a constitutionalist. He votes according to the Constitution. No foreign entanglements, period. And people say, well, Trump's not an isolationist. You were prompted by Israel. That's the only reason you're doing this. In my opinion, it's barely opinion considering Trump only struck when Netanyahu said we're going to take action, and his own people admitted, okay, well, Israel's prompting us to take action, we're going to take action. That's not Israel. That's not Israel paranoia. I know that's a thing going on. I acknowledge that's a thing on the right and left right now. There are people who are way too... They get lost in the sauce when it comes to Israel and Jewish control and like that conspiracy theory, right? I acknowledge that. At the same time, our government literally said, Israel is going to strike. It's prompting us to strike too. We're going to strike on. They acknowledge this now. This is just a known fact. That's another thing I bumped into earlier. So there's been ads. If you don't live in Kentucky, maybe you don't see them. But there have been ads that are funded by billionaires, super PAC billionaires, that don't even live in Kentucky, probably couldn't name a single city in Kentucky, pumping money into Massie's district to fund his opposition. And there are ads that are blasting all over the state. Vote for Massie's opposition. He was endorsed by Charlie Kirk, the last politician endorsed by Charlie Kirk before his death. Nobody even knew about fucking Ed Galrine before Massie started popping off, specifically about the Epstein files and the war. Nobody knew about this guy, much less Charlie Kirk. Nobody Googled his name. Nobody donated. Nobody knew about this guy. Not only am I suspecting bullshit on that, but when Massie pulls up a tweet of Charlie Kirk literally saying, I'm with one of my favorite politicians in the country right now, Thomas Massie, like showing Charlie consistently liked Massie. They had several conversations. They were buddies for a long time, actually. Because Massie's a constitutionalist, they had a lot of interesting conversations about that. And now people in the comments are like, you're trying to emotionally blackmail us using Charlie Kirk. That's what fucking Ed Galrine was doing. He's literally responding to your emotional blackmail with the truth. And you're calling that emotional blackmail. There's so many just dumb arguments when it comes to Thomas Massie right now. Which I don't care if you don't like Massie. I don't care if you like Massie. I don't care what your thoughts on Massie are. I'm just calling out that some of these arguments are so dumb. You can be pro something and still call out the bad arguments. I just did that on vegetarianism. I am willing to do that all the time. I'm pretty sure liberals do that all the time just to cover up for the fact that they have Hassan Piker speaking for them. I can't confirm any of that is real. But, so let's move on. Stay on topic here. Whatever your thoughts on the pro-war, anti-war arguments, whatever your stance on Iran is, it is having a ripple effect, and it is going far beyond just our ally countries in that region. There are people who are becoming radicalized here. So we already read about that Austin shooting. There was the attempted bombing in New York City. Now we have another one. Would-be Michigan car bomber rammed explosives-laden truck into Temple, Israel preschool before security guards shot him dead. But they still say having armed guards at schools is ineffective. Don't you love that? Which, by the way, synagogues, because they're like a hotspot for terror attacks, So many of them have armed guards, even in like Democrat cities. Michigan is one of the most anti-gun in states in the country. Michigan hates guns. They have some of the strictest laws, and they still have armed guards outside of their synagogues and Jewish schools. But remember, guys, armed guards outside of schools are ineffective. If you put it outside a public school or a Catholic school, that's not going to do shit. No, never. An armed wannabe car bomber plowed a vehicle loaded with explosives into the preschool of a Michigan synagogue Thursday in a targeted attack on the Jewish community, investigators said. The anti-Semitic attack at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield happened just before 1 p.m., when Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, a 41-year-old Lebanese American, smashed his car through the doors and sped through the building with 140 students inside. Heroic security guards opened fire and stopped the driver, who died at the scene. Oakland Sheriff Mike Bouchard told the reporters. Bouchard? I don't know how to say your name, dude, sorry. All students and staff were evacuated to safety, but one security guard was injured in the anti-Semitic attack. The explosive-laden truck sparked a blaze, with aerial footage from local outlets showing smoke wafting from the building in the aftermath as authorities swarmed the synagogue. Ghazali, found dead inside the car and burned beyond recognition, was armed with a rifle, and mortar shells were discovered in the vehicle's rear, sources told the Post. We can't say what killed him at this point, Bouchard said, but security did engage the suspect with gunfire. The hateful maniac was identified by the Department of Homeland Security, which revealed the Lebanese national became a naturalized U.S. citizen more than a decade ago under the Obama administration after entering the country through Detroit in May 2011 on an immigrant visa as the spouse of an American citizen. Ghazali, a restaurant worker who lived in Dearborn Heights, carried out the twisted attack after at least 4 family members, including a sibling, were killed in Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon days earlier. Sources close to the investigation told the Detroit News. The temple's head security guard was hit by the madman's car and knocked unconscious in the chaos. He was rushed to a nearby hospital for treatment and is expected to recover, police said. At least 30 emergency responders are also being treated for smoke inhalation at local hospitals. Everyone is safe, said a post on Temple Israel's Facebook page. Our amazing staff, our courageous teachers, and our heroic security personnel are all accounted for and safe. The post lauded security guards who took down the suspect as truly heroes and said teachers followed their training and kept children safe and calm. But again, if we put armed guards outside of public schools, it wouldn't be effective, and it'd be a problem somehow. There are anti-Semitic people in the world. Jewish schools are more of a target, usually. I'm not even going to say Jewish schools. Religious schools in general are more of a target for violence. All the recent school shootings, they're not public schools, they're Catholic schools. At least the ones that come to my mind. Despite showing how Catholic schools are targeted as much as Jewish schools, we're not going to put armed guards outside of Catholic schools, much less public schools. We have armed security to protect banks. How does it make you feel to think about that? How we protect our money more than we protect our kids? Isn't that crazy? Anyway, carried out the twist attack after at least 4 family members, including a sibling, were killed in Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon days earlier. And people will look at this and say, like, well, just because terrorists are gonna react, we're supposed to not attack terrorists? What was the point in Israel striking Lebanon? You can draw your own conclusion. Look, you can draw your own conclusions from this, okay? I have not looked into the Lebanese situation very deeply. Israel, and I know it's another Israeli attack. I have not looked deep into the details. I'm not going to talk about it. You can draw your own conclusions from that. All I'll say is, this paints a really ugly picture when you combine it with everything else happening in the world right now. And even outside of the violence, air cargo costs jumped 70% amid U.S.-Iran war. The ongoing U.S.-Israel war on Iran has sent air cargo costs skyrocketing by as much as 70% on some routes. The conflict is disrupting flights, blocking sea shipments, and pushing up jet fuel prices. South Asia European routes have been worst hit due to Middle Eastern airspace closures and security concerns. Likewise, over 100 container ships are stranded. The conflict has left over 100 container ships stranded around the critical Strait of Hormuz oil export corridor. This has forced companies to switch from ocean freight to air cargo for transporting goods like cheap generic medicines from India to the European Union, Africa, and some Arab countries. This shift is significant as air freight accounts for about 1/3 of global trade by value, while acknowledging 70% of it. When you see this, it's not air companies that are going to be paying for it mainly. This is going to be us paying for it by higher prices. The shift from ocean to air freight is driving up costs often by 5 to 10 times. Holy shit. This is due to tightening capacity in the wake of the conflict. The jet fuel price has also doubled since hostilities broke out. Danish container shipping giant Maersk has announced that its own air cargo service is now charging fuel surcharges at war risk levies. Holy shit. Operations at Dubai and Doha severely limited. The airspace closures have also reduced cargo capacity in freighters, and passenger planes and airlines are taking longer routes to avoid the conflict zone. This has further pressured rates. Operations at Dubai and Doha, usually among the world's busiest air cargo hubs, have been severely limited by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Direct flights from Hong Kong to Europe, skipping Dubai stopover. You get the idea. Everything's fucked up. And we're going to be paying for that. Europeans are going to be paying for it. This isn't just something that Middle Eastern countries are going to be paying for. It's something Africa is going to be paying for. There's something Europe's going to be paying for. There's something India is going to be paying for. There's something the Far East is going to be paying for. There's something America is going to be paying for too. We get a lot of cheap meds from India. So yeah, that's sort of the rundown of the ripple effect of this war. Again, I'm trying to stay subjective. I'll make it clear. I can see how this war could end well for Iranians. As it stands, I'm just seeing a shit ton of dead civilians and a war effort from one of the most notorious war hawks in our government. It's just not pretty. And the more I look into this, the more I just start to realize this is probably not going to end the way people think it's going to end. It could. There is every chance. I want to eat my words. I want to see democratized Iran. I want to see those people be free. I want to see that regime fall. But can we even make it happen? Okay, I spent a lot of time talking about Iran. You can share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. We're going to move into another subject. Oof. Israeli military drops charges against soldiers accused of SAing a Palestinian detainee. Jerusalem AP. Israel's military on Thursday said it was dropping charges against 5 soldiers accused of beating and SAing a Palestinian detainee in an alleged assault partially caught on camera. This isn't just like the detainee said it happened. They have camera evidence, and we have hospital records and the testimony of people in the hospital. The decision, which came as much of the country's attention was focused on the war with Iran, closed a flashpoint case that has bitterly divided Israel since the soldiers were arrested in 2024 at the notorious sorry, I can't say that, guys. Taman military prison, prompting anger from members of the far-right government and hardline ultra-nationalists who violently overran the prison in protest. That's a lot. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the announcement while human rights groups accused the military of ignoring one of the gravest instances of abuse in the country's network of wartime prisons. Israel's military advocate general just gave his soldiers license to rape so long as the victim is Palestinian, said Sari Bashir, executive director of the Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, after the case was dismissed. She said the decision was the latest in a long line of actions that whitewash abuses against detainees whose frequency and severity have worsened since October 7th. Netanyahu welcomed the decision, saying that the state of Israel must pursue its enemies, not its heroic fighters. Remember what I just said about ICE a few minutes ago? Being pro-ICE doesn't mean you have to be anti-accountability. Otherwise, it's literally a police state. There are some retards who will literally say having police is a police state. No, that's not a police state. Police state is police are given the clearance to do whatever the fuck they want and they never face accountability. That is kind of a problem in America. Not for the reason you're thinking of, the police union Unions are definitely a Democrat field, in case you're unaware. Democrats are the ones defending those unions. In the same way, it's really, really hard to fire teachers because of the teachers' union. In the same way, it's really, really hard to fire, I don't know, what's another big union? Isn't there like a minor or like a coal, oil sort of union? Something like that. There's a union related to something in that field, and it's a pain in the ass to work around. In that same way, the police union will protect bad apples in the police force. And it's incredibly annoying, it's incredibly hard to work around, it's incredibly hard to hold bad cops accountable when they fuck up. There's a lot of components that can play into that, but the police union is one of the main forces that doesn't help. Sane people should say the same about the IDF or the military or whatever. You can be pro-military or pro-IDF and pro-accountability. Why do you want bad apples in your ranks? Why do you want people who are going to be a problem for you, who are going to create these sort of media headaches to stay in your thing? Just get them out. Excise the bad apples. Anyway, the now dismissed indictment against the soldiers accused them of an assault that included dragging a Palestinian prisoner along the floor, stepping on him, tasering him, and SAing him by stabbing him in the rectum. Oh my god, dude. Why are these people free? That's fucked up, man. These people are psychotic to do that. Why are you letting them do this? Why would you want these people in your ranks? People who are willing to do this shit. That is disturbing. The Palestinian was taken to an Israeli hospital with fractured ribs and a perforated rectum that required surgery before he was returned to the prison. The allegations of abuse at the facility gained steam when, in August 2024, Israeli news broadcast a leaked video of the alleged assault. The video showed a group of masked soldiers wearing a wrestling a detainee from the ground where he and other Palestinians were lying face down and handcuffed in a fenced-in pen, and taking the detainee to an area of the pen where they cordoned off using shields. In its Thursday decision dismissing the case, the military's top legal officers said the charges against the soldiers were being dropped because the video did not show abuse violent enough. Let me read that again. Let me read that in full. They were dropped because the video did not show abuse violent enough to merit a criminal conviction and had been improperly leaked to the media. Imagine there was a video of Epstein doing some heinous shit. In the unredacted version of the files, we might actually have that. Imagine a video comes up with Epstein clearly showing... No, not Epstein. He's already dead. We have a video showing one of Epstein's buddies doing something heinous to a little girl, and it's leaked, and a judge goes, well, we can't get justice for this little girl because this video is improperly leaked. What the fuck, man? Oh my, what, how, what logic is this? What world are we living in? Oh my god. Did not show abuse violent enough to merit a criminal conviction. You broke 7 of his ribs and stabbed him in the asshole. How is that not violent enough to merit a criminal conviction? That is insane. That is insane. Again, I don't know who this detainee is. Maybe he's a terrorist. Maybe he's not a good person. That doesn't make this justified. What the fuck? In November 2025, after much speculation about how the leaked video got out, military advocate General Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi, the top legal official in the military, admitted that she had approved its release, saying she wanted to show how serious the abuse was and convince people the military had a duty to investigate. Thank you? Facing an uproar from Netanyahu's government, she abruptly resigned and then disappeared, only to be found phoneless on a Tel Aviv beach after a frantic search by authorities. The phone, believed to hold possible evidence against her, was later recovered in the sea. The Associated Press investigated allegations of inhumane treatment and abuse at Sidf Tayman before the surveillance video. The prison was set up after October 7th to hold Palestinians rounded up in Gaza during Israel's war against the Hamas militant group. The secretive facility quickly gained notoriety as employees and Palestinians freed from detention described scenes of abuse and torture, and Israeli rights groups petitioned the country's top court for it to be shuttered. Israel has long been accused of failing to hold its soldiers accountable for crimes committed against Palestinians. The allegations have intensified during the war in Gaza. Israel says its forces act within military and international law. It says it's... I don't know. I don't know international law off the top of my head, but I have to imagine that the violent sexual abuse of a prisoner with a knife is not in there somewhere. Palestinians rounded up in Gaza during Israel's war against Hamas. So this could just be, this might not even be a Hamas member. They like to make it pretty clear when it's a Hamas person that is in. Usually that is included in the context. If it's a member of Hamas, the fact that they're not saying it's a member of Hamas is just a Palestinian. And this is the context of what the prison is for. Palestinians rounded up in Gaza, so maybe like citizens that were just in the way or whatever, refugees and all that. In a secretive government prison, just got cleared of all charges because of over fucking sexual assault that was on camera, and the dude had injuries documented in an Israeli hospital. And the fact that she felt so unsafe that she had to throw her phone into the sea, that's fucking crazy, man. This is insane. Like, just like anything else, you can be you can have positive feelings about the Israeli people, Israeli culture, whatever. I'm not gonna shame. I have nothing against Israeli people. I have nothing against Israeli immigrants. I have nothing against, much less like a Jewish people. I know people conflate Israeli, Jewish, Zionist all the time. Yes, there's a difference between all three of those things. I don't have a problem with them. But when Israel's government does shit like this, maybe it's okay to call a spade and just say, hey, that's pretty fucked up. Like anything else in the world, you can be pro-police and pro-police accountability. You can be pro-ICE and pro-ICE accountability. You can be pro-McDonald's and pro-McDonald's accountability. You can be pro-Israel and pro-Israel accountability. Why are these ideologies constantly made to seem like they're in conflict with each other? Like, if you're holding 5 soldiers who ate a man with a knife accountable, that's an offense to the entire Israeli people, and as they like to make it seem, an offense to Jewish people across the world. It's anti-Semitic, blah, 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 blah. Why? That's insane. Okay, we're gonna move on. Next topic. This is the last topic that I want to dive into. This video is getting so long already. I didn't intend to speak on Iran for so long. We're kind of running out of time. I have so much to edit too. My god. So much yapping. I don't want this subject to die out, so I'm going to keep sharing updates as often as I can. Unfortunately, there's a lot. News outlets aren't really reporting on this anymore either. It's not just like nobody's talking about it. That literally there's no news to talk about, unfortunately. But I'm going to say whatever I can. Epstein's longtime accountant testifies on his wealth and business ties. This is the latest update in the Epstein case. No, this just came out yesterday. House lawmakers were digging into Jeffrey Epstein's sprawling financial portfolio on Wednesday as a committee deposed his former accountant and tried to understand his connections to some of the world's wealthiest men. Richard Kahn, who worked closely with Epstein for years and now serves as an executor of his estate, appeared for a closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill. He told lawmakers that he had not personally seen evidence of Epstein's sexual abuse, but provided a fuller picture of how Epstein acquired his wealth. The wealthy financier made hundreds of millions of dollars over 2 decades, during which he struck up friendships with some of the world's most powerful men. Oh yeah, he sure did. Kahn was under the impression that Epstein made his money as a tax advisor and a financial planner, says Representative James Comer, the Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee. Lawmakers argued that a fuller picture of Epstein's finances could help the public understand how, for years, he was able to get away with trafficking and sexually abusing underage girls. Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring would not have been possible without Richard Kahn, who managed Epstein's money for years, authorized payments, including payments to victims and survivors, said Representative James Walkinshaw, a Democrat of Virginia, who added that Kahn told him he was unable to recall details of some of the transactions and communications that he was asked about. Convenient. Real convenient. So far, this guy just gives me the same disgusting, slimy, weasel, snake oil vibes of fucking Alan Dershowitz, in case you don't know. He was Epstein's lawyer for years, in case you don't know, and recently came out and claimed that all the girls were prostitutes and whores and druggies and sluts, and he was gonna sue him for defamation for this. I'm sure that 8-year-old girls that appear on camera with Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein, and Bill Clinton, I'm sure they're just sluts and druggies and whores, right? That 8-year-old is hitting the streets with a bottle of hooch. I hope that doesn't get clipped out of context. My god. Like, can you be any more of a scumbag? My god. Kahn has said that he was unaware of Epstein's sexual abuse and had not seen any of his victims. Comer, a Republican of Kentucky, also said that lawmakers confirmed during the deposition that Epstein received significant amounts of money from former retail shopping chain executive Les Wexner, hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, tech entrepreneur Steven Sinofsky, investor Leon Black, and the Rothschilds, a wealthy banking company. The Rothschild shit is fucking creepy. Like, I can see why there are conspiracies about the Rothschilds, I'm just saying. That is a weird family, man. None of those people have been accused of wrongdoing in their relationships with Epstein, but Democrats on the committee argued that anyone with ties to the wealthy financier should be scrutinized. Wexner was deposed by the committee last month, and Comer had also called on Black, among several others, to appear for transcribed interviews. Now, true, anyone who knew Epstein, who stated his name, who met him once, never again, knew of Jeffrey Epstein, maybe not even people who knew Jeffrey Epstein, not all of them are guilty of what he was guilty of. But who can you fucking trust anymore? For example, fucking Howard Lutnick, that fucking creep, he's just said, I only met Epstein once. He was my briefly lived neighbor, and I came into his home and he told a lewd joke about the massage table, and then I left with my dignity. And then sure enough, in the files, we have Lutnick talking about meeting Epstein on the island, as in, again, as in he's done it before, and he's bringing his children with him and another family's children with him. Now granted, that's not automatic, that's not me saying like he was bringing his children to get raped, but you're bringing your children to the island, the secluded, secretive island of a known, well-known pedophile, and meticulously listing out all their H's. You are either disgustingly malicious or just absolutely retarded, and either way, you deserve whatever criticism you get as a result of this investigation. And man, I want to see people, we're seeing people step down, as in willing firings. I want to see firings. I don't just want to see firings. I want to see arrests. I want to see perp walks. I want to see people rotting behind bars. If witch burnings were still a thing, I would say even that. For the ones who are proven guilty of the most disgusting crimes imaginable. Right, you're gonna torture and potentially even eat babies, like witches were often accused of doing. You're gonna burn like a witch bitch. Kahn also told lawmakers that Epstein had financial ties to Ehud Barak, who was the Prime Minister of Israel from 1999 to 2001, according to Democratic Representative Suhas Subramanian. Barak has not been accused of wrongdoing and has said he regrets his friendship with Epstein. Comer also said Wednesday that the committee has reviewed over 40,000 documents that is subpoenaed from JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, both of which were connected with Epstein. Epstein was connected to at least 64 business entities, according to Comer. Republican President Donald Trump has strongly denied any wrongdoing in his own ties to Epstein. and Comer said that Khan had never seen any financial transactions between Epstein and Trump. Comer said that Khan is the latest witness to testify that they had never seen Trump do anything wrong with Epstein. The investigation's about getting the truth to the American people, trying to figure out how the government failed, answer all the questions we have, Comer said. This whole topic is just so frustrating because I don't know about you guys. You can think what you want to think about this, right? I've just blackpilled. I don't know who to fucking trust anymore, okay? It's like on one hand, even like as far as Trump's innocence goes, so many people, victims, associates, even like people who were on secret camera, who are like OG investigators in the Epstein case, like from 2005. Even the files themselves, they say Trump reported Epstein to FBI, cooperated with FBI in exposing him. And a lot of stuff kind of backs his account of like, I disconnected from Epstein in 2005, mainly over property deals and creepy shit in Mar-a-Lago. But that, yeah, okay. At the same time, why were you trying to cover for these people? Why did you promise you would get these files out and bring truth to the American public, and then you backtracked so hard and tried to gaslight us into thinking that was never part of your position? You have all the files now, or whatever other excuses that they had, right? Some people say it's because of Epstein's connection to Israel. It makes Ehud look so bad, it makes all of Israel look so bad. And granted, there are people who are going to jump to the extremes because of that. It does not mean it's not fucking creepy as hell and shady as hell and worthy of knowing, worthy of investigating. A lot of people say it's because there's a lot of like Republican lobbyists and donors. True, there's a lot of Democrat lobbyists and donors too. It's not like either side is innocent in all this. Like, what the fuck, man? What the literal fuck? Whether you think Trump is innocent or guilty based on the evidence we have, not just a vibe check. I wouldn't blame you if your vibe check came back with a red flag. But based on the evidence we have, analyzing this, whether it's Trump or anybody, okay, looking at the facts here, removing the fact that this is Trump, let's look at the objective stuff. Would I believe this person is guilty or innocent based on this? I've done that many times now, and honestly, I come back 50-50. I lean in favor of not guilty just because of the hidden camera video, the files, cooperating with the FBI, but it's important to keep in mind that even before all that, Trump was friends with Epstein for like over a decade, so yeah, it's fucking creepy. And you don't know, at the end of the day, who to fucking trust. And I think there's nothing more frustrating than that, because it feels like everybody is going to only acknowledge truths like this, is only going to advocate for things that should be so bipartisan, getting justice for underage girls who are part of a trafficking ring. They're only going to talk about it if it benefits their party or their country or their side of whatever. And it's so sad to see. Anyway, that is all I have for today. I have a lot to edit, don't I? Hopefully you found some of this interesting. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. Helps. Any little thing helps. I will see you in another video soon. I'm probably going to be slowing down on political content again. A lot of what's going on I don't feel obligated to speak on. I'm probably going to focus more on like social subjects, like Redditards taking L's, etc. I'll probably focus more on that for the time in lieu of like, and definitely Epstein. I'm going to, if there's Epstein updates, I'm probably going to jump on it as much as I can. It's really hard because not only are news stopping talking about it, but even like the updates, like it won't come into your X feed. It's not anywhere near the top of the news cycle. It's annoying as hell. But I am going to try to keep track of these Epstein cases going on. I will see you in another video soon. My friends, my spectators, thank you so much for watching, and farewell.